Hari Om. Hari Om and salutations. Welcome you all at auspicious Sankara Vijayotsava Mahotsav. We have today the students of Vedanta Sadhaka Course speak on the various aspects of Bhagavan Sankaracharya's life and teachings with their heart-filling gratitude. As Vijay has already mentioned, they'll be speaking in different languages. So we'll just start on with Sureshji, whose topic is Sri Shankaracharya's variety of work in English.
Om Sri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. When we think of the name Shankara, the one word that comes to our mind is Bhashyam. And when we think of Bhashyam, the one name that comes to our mind is Shankara. So Shankara and Bhashyam are two inseparable words and cannot be separated from each other. Still, the Bhashyam that he has written on our three main texts, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Brahma Sutra, forms only a tip of the iceberg of the works of Shankaracharya. From a content perspective, it forms the entire base of the iceberg, but from the number perspective, it just forms the tip of the iceberg. Then Shankaracharya realized that in 2021, there is going to be a Vedanta Sadhaka course. And he said, these people are not, majority of them are not going to understand the Bhashyam. So he had to create a whole series of Prakarana Granthas, starting from the basics to the middle level to the advanced level. And he had to put them all together. And then separate from that, Gurudev had to come and teach us, that is, he famously calls as college-educated illiterates, which is what he calls all of us, to teach us even those Prakarana Granthas, which Gurudev came and contributed for us. That forms the entire basis, and majority of the people think Shankaracharya only did Advaita Vedanta work, but that's not true. There are many, many stotrams that are composed by Shankaracharya, and many of which are spontaneously born when he went to a particular temple, he saw a particular situation, he came across a particular event, covering the entire gamut of human emotions, whether it is love, whether it is compassion, whether it is devotion. The entire gamut of human devotions are covered in the stotrams, and some people are going to be talking about it, so I'll leave that aside. There is one stotram that, being in Adi Sankaracharya, I have to mention. When Shankaracharya ji in the end came to see his mother, he wrote a stotram called Maitri Panchakam, which is one of the most beautiful compositions on the mother. And that is something that we all should at least read once to get an understanding of his devotion and love to his mother. So, though he was an Advaitin, he had emotions. As our Gurudev would say, he was not emotional, but he had emotions. And he exhibited those emotions in the stotrams fairly very well. But that was not it. Shankaracharya has written an entire composition on the entire tantric system. And it is called Prapancha Sara Tantra, where the entire tantric literature, the tantric methodology, the methods of rituals, the prayers, and the entire upasana has been described in 36 chapters and is presented in depth in terms of all the rituals and the process that one needs to go through. In addition to that, Shankaracharya ji has written a Bhashyam on what is called as Lalita Trishati Namavali. Now, interestingly, Lalita Sahasranamam comes in Brahmanda Purana, where Hayagriva is giving this particular knowledge to Agastya Muni. At the end of Lalita Sahasranamam, he is not happy with what he has learned, and he asks Hayagriva for more information. Hayagriva hesitates, and then on mother's order, he gives this Lalita Trishati, which is 300 names on Mother Lalita, which is the deepest significance and the details of mother that is given. And Shankaracharya has written a Bhashyam on that, which is called Lalita Trishati Bhashyam. Then comes one other work that Shankaracharya has written about, which is, he's also written about Yoga Sutra, where he has written Yoga Sutra Bhashya Vivaranam, So you can see from all these varieties of work that Shankaracharya has written, just like our Vedic literature and our Hindu culture, the core of it is Advaita philosophy. But the breadth of it covers the entire gamut of karma, upasana, bhakti, yoga, jnana, and everything. Similar to that, I believe Shankaracharya's heart was Advaita Vedanta, but his entire body and his work covers the entire gamut of philosophies of the Hindu tradition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sureshji. Now we have Shashikala ji. Her topic is Take Away from Bhaja Govindam in English.
Okay, I'll start again. So Bhaja Govindam is one of Shankaracharya's most popular texts. Though classified as a devotional text, Shankaracharya teaches us the fundamentals of Advaita Vedanta, and he gives us the instructions on how to walk the spiritual path. So interestingly, when I talk to my friends and relatives and talk about spirituality and walking the path, I get asked the question, what are you doing here? I mean, it's old people stuff. You should do it after you retire. So interestingly, this poem was composed when Shankaracharya was walking in Benares with his disciples, and he saw an old man, trying to memorize grammar rules, just like we sadhakas are doing. So, and this poem came out of his mouth, saying that all the things that we are running after, chasing after the worldly objects, none of these things is going to help you when our end is near. So looking at the old man, he's saying, oh, fool, you need to remember God. So the poem starts as Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam. So essentially saying all the objects of this world are finite. It can only give finite happiness, and it's not going to save you in this life or even later on. So now when we talk about later on, it gives the importance of the resource. What is the resource? This body, and this life is our resource, correct? So he gives various examples on to point out the description of this life, this body. So for example, one of the verses says, Ma kuru dhana jana yavana garma. Like if I think, for example, oh, I have money, I have resource, I am young, I can do this later on. He says it's a big mistake because harati nimeshat kala sarvam, which means that the time is going to snatch it away. So today we may think that I have everything and, I'm prepared, but you know what, it's not my stuff for now. I'm going to postpone after retirement. He said, think again. And then another verse, he talks about the unpredictability of our life, and he compares it to the dewdrop on a leaf. So it's nalini dalagata jalamati taralam, meaning there is a dewdrop on a leaf. How long before that dewdrop falls or evaporates? That unpredictable is our life. We do not know when our life is going to end, and we are putting so much emphasis on this body. And there's another verse which talks about when the life gets out of this body, even our spouse and children won't want to keep the dead body in the house. And yet we are, chasing after all these things. So now one may wonder, why is Shankaracharya talking about such a glim picture, of such a beautiful life? So what he's trying to teach us is pratipaksha bhavna, meaning right now we are extroverted and our mind is chasing other objects. So how do I now withdraw from it? So he's asking us to look at the negative in the pleasure objects that gives pleasure. And similarly, if you really hate somebody, try to look at the positive aspect of that person. This way, we are trying to reduce the intensity of our raga dvesha. And by continuing this practice, we can make our mind calm and make it available to look at God and worship God. So, and then the next, in many of the verses he talks about, it's very famously called as the ladder of progress. Recently, we saw the ladder of fall in Bhagavad Gita. Here he emphasizes, Shankaracharya is emphasizing the importance of satsang. So we need to surround ourselves with like-minded people, be in the company of holy people who can teach us, who can guide us, and also make sure that we continue on this path. So this is something, the phrase is very good. So satsangatve, by having good company, it can help us to withdraw our mind from the objects and detach from the worldly objects. And then that detachment will lead to the killing of delusion of our mind. And once the delusion is gone, we'll be able to get to the reality. And finally, with continued practice, we will actually be able to experience the truth ourselves. And so therefore, in conclusion, I don't know what the time is, but I think in conclusion, what Sankaracharya is asking us to do, and which is what I have been striving to do, is to make sure that we include God in all our activities, understand the limitations of the worldly objects and what it can bring to us. There is nothing harm in earning a living if that is our dharma and if that's the ashram that we belong to. There's nothing wrong, but as long as we include a spiritual component in our life as early as possible, because as we know in the worldly place also, unless we plan for it, unless we work towards it, nothing is going to happen automatically. And one last thing to remember is that all the things that we achieve in this life, whether it's pursuit of our worldly objects, fame and anything, all this is going to be in this, we are going to leave it behind when this body falls. But what is going to remain or go with us is that connection that we established with God that is going to protect us and give us unlimited happiness. And again, the final goal is liberation. But even if that seems too far-fetched, walking the path itself gives us happiness and satisfaction. So I think that's a beautiful verse, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shashikalaji. Now we have Nandanji, who will be reciting a poem in English on amazement.
Thank you, Minal. I'm just going to recite a poem I wrote a long time ago. It's an amazement about creation. I wonder how he breathed and spitted out the tiny universe, how with a stroke of tiny golden brush in his giant hand spilled the infinite blue and black and green and red, all with a single stroke. The green hills and white-capped mountains, the tiny plains and hairy small blue veins, down and round and in and out through all wonders. The hazy heart of desert and pretty cold 8 poles, I wonder with all amazement how he roofed this tiny world with countless twinkling diamonds and the crescent big in the middle, with his immense might, rolled all 9 balls round and round like a merry-go-round. How he blinks to set all in rest in dark and wakes all up and pushes back and forth. How a drop of his tiny brush fell and this tiny child of the universe began to breathe. The most wonder of all, how he created this tiny heart that can hold the love infinite. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nandanji. Now we have Dr. Arundhati Sundarji, who will be talking on Sri Adi Sankaracharya ji, the integrator. She'll be talking in English.
Om Shri Adi Sankaracharya Varyaya Namaha. When I was in college, actually even before that, when I was in school, among the most important phrases we heard to inspire us was national integration, if you remember that, in school and colleges. And we realize now when we read the news of our country that national integration still remains an important thing to achieve. And that is, and one of the persons we can look to for how that can be done in a manner that has lasted for thousands of years is our Adi Sankaracharya. He so even though the time is very brief, just to look at what he did. Of course, he came with an inspiration. That inspiration was established in the climate of the time. His own father was an acharya for him, and we hear about the temple that he went to, all of those. So in that kind of a climate, when he was growing up, with his Upanayanam done at an early age, in a home like this, where the temple is just around the corner, he grew up in this culture. But unlike the other children, he was not, that wasn't enough. There was a greater, that moksha, the ultimate, was in his mind right from a very young age. So dharma, artha, kama, moksha, the moksha was the one that he wanted to achieve. So he started off in his journey. It seems that the early part of his journey from Kaladi and is along the coast was in the company of people who were traders. He went over the coast to Gokarna and those regions. And so he had that journey. We imagine that alone one child left. No, there were people going. He joined such groups going. It seems after Gokarna and these regions, the company was that of the sannyasins and the ascetics and bhikshuk. And he enjoyed. And even in those times when he was just a child looking for his guru, they were amazed at how he would go into a meditative mood, looking at the rivers, looking at the trees. He's composed poems. We of course know about the sutras are going to be taken up, so I'm not going to talk about that. So he experienced the villages, towns, and the people of the country firsthand. It was his pratyaksha that he was seeing as he went towards his guru. When he reached his guru, of course, he got the Brahmagnana, the Atmagnana that he was looking for at all times. And then his guru instructed him. And each time in his life, there was an inspiration for what next to happen. That next to happen was he met the people with all these different views when he was in Varanasi. That place was full of different scholars, and he realized the number of views that were held, and because of his sharp intellect, he could see where the fault lines were in each of their views. He did not say, oh, you are wrong. No, he said, what you are saying may be right up to this point, but this is where it fails. So he, with his sharp intellect, could see that logic and could and coming with the sweetness and humbleness of a child, because at that time, remember, he was still only 12 years old. So coming with that humility, people started respecting him. After that respect, he went around the country. He went, his yatras, which will be talked about in detail later, covered from north, the Himalayas, the Badek Ashram, Kashmir, Kamarupa to the east, Gandhara, which is present-day Afghanistan, Kanyakumari, Rameshwaram, of course, Karadgi, back and forth, 3 yatras altogether. In this time, his first thing was, of course, to establish Vedanta, but also the cultural integration that he saw as a necessary part, that he saw as the oneness, was the most important. And how did he sing in the words of Puja Gurudev very quickly? Okay, the Acharya conceived of Bharat as one cultural unit all the way from the Himalayas to the southernmost point, from the east to the west, and the supreme realization of that one underlying cultural principle is what he saw as the integrating aspect, not just the geographical. So right now we think of the border as a geographical, but it was that cultural aspect. One more point I would like to mention as an integrator of this thing is that not only did he establish the 4 mathas around the country, but he took the help of the kings. The kings were attracted to him. He did not necessarily go to the kings. And it seems that when he established the 4 mathas, he did not only put each people in charge of it, but he then dictated a book called Mahanushasanam, which said the rules and disciplines that each of the mathas would have to take on. And so this kind of a rule book and a guidebook that he made. So no detail did he leave out. No wonder the institutions that is established have been here around for thousands of years, at least 2000 years, I think, even though the dates given are 800 BCE, those dates are not very true. They are the Western dates. So I think of him as an integrator. I think of him as an innovator. And I wish our people today would look to him more and more, not just our sadhus and sannyasis, but also the politicians and other social changers to look on him as an integrator and an innovator. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Arundhati ji. Now we would like to call Anjanaji. She'll be talking in English on Sankara Digvijaya.
Hari Om, Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Prostrations to Pujya Gurudev and to my Acharyas. It gives me immense pleasure to stand in this blessed place and to talk and making an attempt to talk about Adi Sankaracharya ji. What to talk of him? The greatest contribution of his to the spiritual renaissance of India has been many. But one of the important aspects in his illustrious life of 32 years has been the Digvijaya Yatra. The Digvijaya Yatra on foot across the length and breadth of India, an unimaginable feat done around 3 or 4 times as per the records. And what was the purpose? The purpose was the benefit of humanity and as per his Guru's instruction to impart the knowledge of Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, as well as the bliss of self-experience to ardent seekers. He also participated in many philosophical debates with different orthodox schools of Hindu philosophy and also with Buddhist, Jains, Charvakas, etc. to re-establish the Sanatana Dharma. So now I am going to take you all on a journey. I want you all to visualize Acharya Shankar Bhagavad Pada walking with his disciples. The journey started from Narmada, the banks of Narmada. As per his Guru's instructions, after his Guru's Mahasamadhi, he started off on this journey, crossing the various difficult passes of the Vindhya mountains. He reached Prayag. After reaching Prayag, it said that when the Ganga of Guru's instructions joins the Yamuna of disciples' contemplation, Saraswati, the effulgent form of the experience of self, arises within as the inner current, Antarvahini. This is known as the Triveni Sangam. After worshipping deities like Ganga Devi and Kala Bhairava and Annapurneshwari and spontaneously coming out with stotrams like the Ganga Ashtakam, appreciating the beauty of Kashi in the Kashi Panchakam, the retinue moved on. They reached, after traveling through the Janapadas of Hastinapur, they reached Haridwar. Later on, they moved to Rishikesh, Devprayag, then to Shri Kshetram and Rudraprayag. And in all places, it is said Acharya would meditate, worship deities, compose stotrams and hymns, and give Atmopadesha. They reached Badri after 3 months of leaving Kashi. The towering mountains of Naranarayana welcomed them. And intuitively, Acharya had this feeling that the statue of Narayana is not there in the temple. And he was aware, he came to know that the statue was placed in the waters, river water, so that it could be saved from the Chinese plunderers. And he was successful in retrieving the idol and installing it there. He stayed in the Vyasa Gufa, Vyasa Cave for 3 years, where within these 3 years, in massive volumes of literature was written by him. The Prasthanatraya, many Prakarana Granthas, many scriptural texts were written by him. Now they proceeded downhill. Via Kurukshetra, Indraprasth reached Vrindavan and Mathura. And as they traveled most of the times along the banks of river Yamuna, he instantly composed the famous Yamunashtakam. Then via Maharashtra, they reached Gokarna, visited Mukambika and Shaktipeetham, Subramanyam, and set off towards Sringeri. From there, he proceeded back to Kaladi because his mother was not well. His longest yatra started this time after a few years, after a few months, from south to north. Crisscrossing within India, he started from Kaladi and destination was Badrinath. Walking along the east coast, they crossed places like Rameshwaram, Kanchi, Puri, Kashi, Somnath in the west, Pushkar in the center of India, Gandhar and Takshila to the west of India, and reached Srinagar. After he stayed, he started back to Jwalamukhi, Haridwar, Ayodhya, Gaya, Nalanda, and reached east to Kamakhya. And everywhere, it's the same procedure: debates, spreading the Hindu culture, re-establishing the faith of the people in the Sanatana Dharma. Many incidents happened during his Digvijay Yatra. Many were initiated into the fold and mathas were established. So if not for Acharya's divine vision, India's spiritual days would have seen darker days. This national integration was possible only and only because of Jagat Guru Sri Adi Sankaracharya. Thank you.
Thank you, Anjanaji. I will now call Pavaiji. She'll be talking in French on Bhaja Govindam.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namah. I'm going to ask you to sing with me the 27th verse of Bhaja Govindam. Geyam Gita Namasa Sahasram Dhyeyam Shri Patilupamajasram Neyam Satchana Sange Chittam Deyam Dina Janaya Chavitam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudamate Samprapte Sanite Kale Nahi Nahi Lakshati Dukhinalane. Ce verset représente la conclusion du bouquet des 14 versets qui a été attribué au 14e disciple de Adi Sankaracharya qui était avec lui dans ce particulier Karshi pèlerinage de l'Acharya. Ce verset déclare le spirituel programme qu'un chercheur peut suivre une fois convaincu la nécessité de réaliser le suprême. 4 inévitables musts dans le programme journalier du sincère chercheur. Étudier la Gita, adoration du Seigneur Narayana, la compagnie des nobles personnes et la charité. Le premier must ou devoir, l'étude, la Bhagavad Gita, réflexion, contemplation sur le sens des versets qui donnent une compréhension, une perception correcte de la vie. Bhagavad Gita nous enseigne une vision de la vie, mais aussi un mode de vie. Bhagavad Gita est un résumé des écritures expliquées dans les Upanishads avec une spéciale référence de leur application quotidiennement dans la conduite de notre vie. Le deuxième must ou devoir, contempler et méditer sur les mouvements du Lord Narayana, Sahasranama, qui représente la même vérité Brahman, cette illimité que le sadhaka recherche. Bhakti qui l'accompagne a un effet formidable pour la purification du mental. C'est elle pour intégrer notre personnalité, élevant notre mental bien au-dessus de ses champs ordinaires et de ses agitations constantes. Le troisième must ou devoir, être en compagnie des nobles personnes, Sajjana Sangha, est très essentiel. Cultiver le satsang, la compagnie des maîtres spirituels, des sages ou des personnes partageant les mêmes idées. Satsang nous aide et nous guide vers ce chemin spirituel avec confiance en soi, où la peur, l'hésitation, le découragement nous empêchent d'avancer. Quatrième devoir, le maître insiste que le chercheur du divin pratique la charité. Donner la richesse aux nécessiteux qui sont dans le besoin, aider les autres et sortir de l'étroitesse d'esprit et de prendre soin de nous seuls. La plus grande richesse qui puisse être donnée aux nécessiteux est la richesse de la connaissance. Ainsi, une fois que le chercheur obtient la connaissance de la réalité du suprême à travers les Écritures, le chercheur devrait aider les autres en donnant cette connaissance. Cherchons Govinda, cherchons Govinda. Thank you.
Merci, Parvati. Merci beaucoup. Okay. Okay, now we have Sririvasanji in English. His topic is the world real?
Hari Om. Can I take this? Hari Om. Salutations to my acharyas and dear friends. There's a small test to check your understanding at the end of the talk. So you must be knowing the topic, is the world real? World appears to be present, but is not what it seems to be. It is constantly changing. World appears because of ignorance of the real self. That is by identifying with the upadhis and not identifying with the self. There is a wondrous and mysterious power which turns an idea into a physical world. Hence, the perceived world, including people, are not what they appear to be. Real is that which cannot be negated under any condition. That is with respect to past, present, future, or with respect to space, time, or object. Real is the knowledge principle that illumines all conditions. It is the awareness and expression of manifestation. It is infinite happiness without any trace of sorrow. Everyone's mind has wishes and wants, longing or craving. Desire seems to change the world by representing how the world should be. Desires make the object appear good. Mind has an intense emotional state involving a strong, uncomfortable, and non-cooperative response to a perceived threat. A person experiencing anger will often experience physical effects such as increased heart rate, etc. It triggers fight or flight. Anger becomes the predominant feeling when a person makes the conscious choice to take action immediately to stop the threatening behavior of another outside force. Anger can have many physical and mental consequences. Greed. Greed is an uncontrolled longing for material gain or social status or power. Greed is an inordinate desire to acquire or possess more than one needs. Delusion. Delusion is a false fixed belief that is not responsive to change in light of conflicting evidence. Pride or arrogance. Extreme pride in which someone feels superior to another. Jealousy. Feeling of insecurity, fear, and concern over a relative lack of safety. Jealousy can consist of one or more emotions such as anger, inadequacy, helplessness, or disgust. The above qualities are linked to each other according to Bhagavad Gita when Bhagavan refers to the fall of a man from the psychological perspective. When Bhagavan says, Dhyayato Vishayan Punsaha Sanghasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Vijayate. When a man thinks of objects, attachment for them arises. From attachment, desire is born. From desire arises anger. Krodhat bhavati sammohaha, sammohat smriti vibhramaha, smriti bhramshat buddhinashaha, buddhinashat pranashyati. From anger comes delusion. From delusion, loss of memory. From loss of memory, the destruction of discrimination. From destruction of discrimination, he perishes. Now the test. There were 67 people who had a party outside the city, some outskirts, some 50 kilometers from the city. The place is completely cut off from all kinds of communication. There's no network, there's no internet, no bus, train, nothing. The host and his sister both were doctors. And all the guests, after the party concluded, all were drunk, including the drivers. It was night. The sister complained of an unbearable stomach pain. Can anyone who knows the answer raise the hands as to what can be the cure for the disease of the sister? Do you want me to repeat the question? Okay. Okay. Yeah, you are right. Because everyone was drunk, including her. So there is no point in running around trying to cure her or finding a doctor who is not drunk. So the cure is waking up. So actually, it is like, how can you believe a person who is already drunk? Is it the real pain? No. So the moral of the story or takeaway is, in the story, she has taken only one kind of drink, which is very superficial. But all of us have drunk 6 kind of drinks. Can anyone guess what these 6 kinds of drinks are? Huh? No. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Rasa. Yeah. So all of us have drunk not one, and that too, one is more powerful than the other. So are our experiences real? Our experiences constitute our world. So is our world real? Only a realized master like Sri Shankara, who is established the real, can guide us out of the unreal to the real. Wishing you a happy Shankara Digvijaya Jayanti. Thank you.
Okay. Now we have Vivek ji in Hindi. We're talking on Vedanta Acharana.
Hari Om. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. The topic is Darshan and Acharan. And sorry. Yeah. So जो आज का जो विषय है वो दर्शन और आचरण है, और इस पर मैं कुछ विचार प्रस्तुत करने जा रहा हूँ। ठीक है। तो जो हमारा जो भारतीय ज्ञान है, शास्त्र है, उसमें हम देख सकते हैं कि ये दोनों पर चर्चा की गई है, दर्शन और आचरण दोनों पर। और हमें बताया गया है कि अगर हम इन दोनों पर ध्यान से अपना ध्यान लगाएं, केंद्रित करें, और हम इन दोनों को लेकर प्रगति करेंगे, तो ही हम मनुष्य जीवन का उद्देश्य पा सकते हैं। तो मनुष्य जीवन का उद्देश्य हमें बताया है कि इसी जीवन में हमें मुक्ति को प्राप्त करना हमारा उद्देश्य है। तो ये तभी हो सकता है जब हम दोनों बात पे ध्यान दें। और अगर हम ऐसा नहीं करते हैं तो न केवल हमारा ये मनुष्य जन्म व्यर्थ होता है, पर हम अधोगति को भी प्राप्त होते हैं। तो कुछ उदाहरण हैं यहाँ पे। सबसे पहले तो अगर जैसे सच्ची स्वतंत्रता को हम नहीं समझते हैं और हम अपने मनमानी को ही सच्ची स्वतंत्रता समझ लेते हैं, तो जो हमारा व्यक्तित्व है वो निखरने की जगह कुमला जाता है और हम परतंत्रता को प्राप्त हो जाते हैं। तो ये ऐसा होने से हम कभी भी अपने उद्देश्य तक नहीं पहुंच सकते। उसके बाद अगर हम ये श्रेयस और प्रेयस के मार्ग को दोनों को समझते नहीं है, तो हम हर क्षण जो निर्णय करते हैं वो सारे गलत हो जाते हैं और फिर से हम अधोगति को प्राप्त हो जाते हैं। अगर हम जो संसार है इससे संपर्क ठीक से नहीं करते हैं, तो हमारा व्यक्तित्व भी छिन्न भिन्न हो सकता है, हो जाता ही है, और हमारे शरीर, मन, बुद्धि तीनों स्तर पे हम अशक्त हो जाते हैं। और अंत में एक और उदाहरण है कि अगर हम कर्म कैसे करना है वो नहीं सीखते हैं ठीक से, जैसे हमें बताया गया है, तो हम अपने उद्देश्य से, जो हमने अभी बात करी थी, जीवन का जो उद्देश्य है, उससे हम बहुत दूर हो जाते हैं। अपने को तो नुकसान हम कराते ही हैं, परंतु समाज को और सबसे ज्यादा धरती माँ को चोट पहुंचाते हैं। तो काम भी बहुत हुआ, द्रव्य का व्यय भी हुआ, और धरती माँ को सबसे ज्यादा चोट भी पहुंची, हमें तो नुकसान हुआ ही। तो अगर ये सब हम नहीं करना चाहते हैं, तो हमें शास्त्रों के अनुसार चल के अपने जीवन पे जो हमें उद्देश्य बताया वहां तक पहुंचना इसी जीवन में बहुत आवश्यक हो जाता है। पर जब हम इस राह पे, मार्ग पे चलते हैं, तो हमें कई सारे प्रश्न आते हैं। बार बार जब शास्त्र पढ़ते हैं तो एक बात बार बार आती है कि नियम का पालन हमें करना चाहिए। तो प्रश्न ये है, हम वो कैसे करें? इस पे पूज्य गुरुदेव स्वामी चिन्मयानंद ने हमें मार्गदर्शन किया है और बताया है कि बुद्धि से अगर हम सोच के, समझ कर और छोटे छोटे उदाहरण पे अगर हम आचरण करें, उसको अपने आचरण में अपनाएं, मतलब लाएं, तो हम समझ सकते हैं। तो कोई नियम को अगर हमें समझना है तो हमें क्या करना होगा? उसको छोटे छोटे भाग में अपने ऊपर प्रयोग करना होगा, और जब हम अपने ऊपर प्रयोग करते हैं तो हमें बात समझ में आने लगती है। एक उदाहरण है, अगर हम एक चौराहे पे जाते हैं और वहां पे यातायात की जो को नियंत्रण करने के लिए जो बत्तियां होती है, लाल, पीली, नीली, उनको देखते हैं, या हरी, उनको हम देखते हैं, उनके अनुसार जब हम चलते हैं तो हम अपने गंतव्य तक पहुंच जाते हैं। पर कोई स्वेच्छाचारी मनुष्य जो है, जो अपनी इच्छा से काम करना चाहता है, नियम को उसके मन में कोई आदर नहीं है, वो उसको ये सब बाधक दिखेंगे, उसको लगेगा अरे मैं तो जा ही नहीं सकता हूँ, ये बत्ती के लिए मुझे खड़े रहना पड़ेगा। पर जब मनुष्य नियम को समझने का प्रयास करता है तो उसके दो फायदे होते हैं। एक तो दो लाभ होते हैं उसको, एक तो अपने गंतव्य तक पहुंचता है, दूसरा उसका विश्वास, उसकी श्रद्धा जगती है गुरु वाक्य के लिए और शास्त्रों के लिए। ये बहुत ही आवश्यक है साधक की प्रगति के लिए और गृहस्थ की प्रगति के लिए। उसके बाद हम एक और प्रश्न है, हम निर्णय कैसे करें? क्योंकि ये भी एक प्रश्न है जो हमें बहुत तंग करेगा अगर हम इस मार्ग पे चलेंगे, अगर हम ठीक से सोचेंगे नहीं। यहाँ पर श्रेयस और प्रेयस का मार्ग हमें हमारे शास्त्रों में बताया गया है, और इसमें एक बात समझ में आती है कि अगर हम इसको नहीं समझेंगे तो हम अपने आप, अपने को जो प्रिय लगता है उस मार्ग पे अपने आप चले जाएंगे। मतलब कुछ करने की आवश्यकता नहीं है, अपने आप हम अधोगति को प्राप्त हो जाएंगे। और अगर हम श्रेयस के मार्ग पे चलकर अगर हम समझ के प्रयास करते हैं तो हम आगे जा सकते हैं। उसके बाद एक आखिरी उदाहरण ये है कि हम कर्म कैसे करें, क्योंकि हम कर्म तो करेंगे ही, सांस लेना भी और हर चीज एक कर्म है ही। तो हमें बताया है कि ऊंचे उद्देश्य से कर्म करने से हमारी प्रगति होगी। तो भगवान को समर्पण करना ये सबसे ऊंचा उद्देश्य है, और ये करके जब हम काम करते हैं तो एक तो दो फायदे होते हैं, एक तो लाभ होते हैं। एक तो हमारा कर्म पे ज्यादा, फल पे ज्यादा ध्यान नहीं जाता है। दूसरा, हमें समझ में आता है कि फल इतना ज्यादा आवश्यक नहीं है, और जब फल आता है तो उसको हम अगर प्रसाद बुद्धि से ग्रहण कर लेते हैं तो हमारा मन भी शांत हो जाता है। तो इस प्रकार हमें देखते हैं कि इस तरह से काम करने से हम अपने उद्देश्य की तरफ पहुंच सकते हैं। तो हम ये अपने जीवन में कैसे उतारें? तो इसका एक आखिरी उदाहरण है कि अगर हम जहां भी काम करते हैं वहां हम अपना पूरा प्रयास करें कि हम ऊंचे उद्देश्य से काम करें और प्रसाद जो भी फल आता है उसको प्रसाद बुद्धि से ग्रहण करें। अगर हम ये नहीं कर पाते हैं तो हमें क्या करना चाहिए, एक ऐसी जगह ढूंढना चाहिए जहां पे ऊंचे उद्देश्य से काम पहले से ही हो रहा है, और अगर वहां जाके हम काम करते हैं तो फिर हम ये हमारे दूसरे साधक भी हमारे मदद कर सकते हैं और हमारी ये जो हम आगे जाके अपना उद्देश्य सफलता से प्राप्त कर सकते हैं। यहाँ पर मैं अपनी वाणी को विराम देता हूँ। धन्यवाद।
Dhanyavad Vivek ji. Our next speaker is Maitri. She's talking in French. Her topic, Devi Bhakti in Adi Sankaracharya Stuti.
Hari Om. I would just, it's okay. I would just like to start with a little hint with French words that we will be continuously hearing. Whenever you hear those words, you at least can have some idea. Pranam to all our three teachers, and thank you for your presence and giving this opportunity. Adi Sankaracharya est mondialement connu comme, avant tout, celui qui a systématisé, clarifié et précisé les enseignements de Advaita Vedanta, notamment ceux des Upanishads. Et ceci crée essentiellement l'image d'un maître spirituel philosophe. À travers ces enseignements brille la lumière du divin non-duel, du divin indescriptible, transcendant, omniscient et omniprésent. Mais si on approche Adi Sankaracharya avec plus d'attention, si on approche son œuvre et son bhavana, on peut voir en lui un extraordinaire bhakta. Personnellement, je vois et admire sa dévotion qui, à travers toutes les formes, était portée vers Jnana, la connaissance suprême. Quand on lit ces stutis, les textes poétiques et dévotionnels, on sent Shankaracharya être enivré par cet amour de Jnana, amour de la connaissance du divin ultime. Il place volontairement le divin non-duel dans les formes des divinités. Ça peut être Vishnu, Dakshinamurti, Saraswati, Lakshmi, pour que l'ultime déborde de ces formes comme l'eau dans l'océan déborderait d'un bocal. On peut souvent sentir que cette jnana est dessinée par Adi Sankaracharya avec une extraordinaire dévotion vers Devi. Devi Parashakti. C'est elle qui nous guide, qui nous bénit, qui nous donne tous les moyens pour arriver à la connaissance ultime, à Aparoksha Gnana. Je vous invite donc à survoler quelques stutis de Devi, où on peut ressentir Bhakti de Adi Sankaracharya qui s'exprime non seulement par le sens et par le choix des mots, mais aussi à travers la beauté phonétique de sa poésie. Dans l'une de ses œuvres probablement les plus connues, les plus précoces, Kanakadara Stotram, composé à l'âge de 7 ans, Devi, Mahalakshmi, est vue non seulement comme celle qui donne la prospérité, mais comme celle qui donne la richesse la plus prisée, c'est-à-dire Aparabhakti, la dévotion suprême, la dévotion la plus pure. Dès les premières lignes de Kanakadara Stotram, Sri Mahalakshmi est vénérée comme la manifestation de Prema. Prema qui est inséparable de Sri Vishnu, qui est son propre potentiel de l'amour. Elle est Bhakti Swarupini. Et l'idée profondément spirituelle de Kanakadara Stotram, qui est souvent cachée derrière l'idée de la prière pour l'abondance matérielle, c'est surtout la prière pour Ananya Bhakti, Ananya Chintanam, la dévotion qui absorbe sans laisser la place à quoi que ce soit d'autre. Pour exprimer sa dévotion et glorifier divin à travers non seulement le sens, mais aussi la beauté poétique, Sankaracharya utilise souvent Shabda Alankara. Shabda étant sonorité, prononciation ou forme phonétique, et Alankara, ornementation ou décoration. Sans aller dans la traduction détaillée du 8e shloka de Kanakadara Stotram, qui dit que Devi, par son seul regard, donne l'accomplissement de tous nos souhaits. Juste écoutons comment ça sonne. Écoutons la beauté de ces Shabda Alankara. Ishta vishishta matayo yayadaya trishta trivishtasta papadam sulabham labhante drishti prahrishta kamalodara diptirishta Pushtim krishishta mama pushkara vishtaraya. D'autres shabdas en Ankara apparaissent en beauté dans Annapurna Stotram, particulièrement dans le 7e verset où Devi est glorifiée comme celle qui prend la forme de l'alphabet pour satisfaire tous nos souhaits d'expression. Observons encore ces shabdas Alankara. Adikshanta samasta varnanakari shambhostri bhavakari kashmiri tripureshwari trinayani vishweshwari sarvari swargadvaraka patanakari kashipuradhishwari bhiksham dehi kripavalambhanakari Mata Annapurneshwari. On ressent comment ces jeux phonétiques sont utilisés par Adi Sankaracharya pour décorer la forme de Devi. Et très rapidement, pour terminer, un tout dernier passage par Sharada Stotram, où le verset insiste sur le fait que Devi est l'adhisthana de cette création. Yaya vina jagat sarvam shashwat jivam mritam bhavet jnanadhi deviya tasye saraswate namo namaha. On ressent que véritablement pour Adi Sankaracharya, Devi est inséparable du divin et de la conscience. Devi est Adhisthana de l'univers entier. Adi Sankaracharya Namo Namaha. Om Shri Matre Namaha.
Thank you very much, Maitri. Now we have Pragnya ji as our next speaker. She's talking in English. Topic is In Search of a Guru.
Hari Om. Hari Om. I would like to talk about Shankaracharya ji's search for a Guru. So Shankaracharya ji had a clear vision about his mission. So he saw how the Vedic Dharma was deteriorating. So, but what he must do and who will give the direction? So, of course, a guru. Guru is the person who places the disciple on a right track. So, Shankaracharya ji started his journey from Kerala. So, he wanted to find the answer to the life's riddle which trailed into death. Some might wonder, like Shankaracharya ji had been initiated by a proper person in Kaladi. Then why this search for Guru? But that initiation was only for gathering the knowledge. But the significance of the knowledge is when it is put to practical use. So the divine touch of a Guru is a must and it was needed. So besides this, Shankaracharya ji had taken an emergency sannyas when he was caught by a crocodile on the banks of river Purna. So at that time he chanted the mantra Presa to give up the world ties. So now he wanted a proper sannyasa. So the search which started on the banks of the river Purna seemed to conclude on the banks of Narmada. So Shankaracharya reached the destination Shiva Puri and the place which housed Omkareshwara temple. And at that time the Guru there, the Acharya was Gauda Govindpada. So Shankaracharya ji just learnt about where he is residing and he approached there. He didn't want to disturb the yogi. And Govindpada was believed to be the incarnation of Patanjali, who has authored the Yoga Sutra. So then he didn't want to disturb him, so he prostrated in front of the entrance and started doing parikrama around the cave. So he started chanting the prayers in the praise of the Guru. So when the Govindpada came out of the samadhi, he was pleased to see Shankara and he called upon him, and Shankaracharya ji approached there and did Pada Puja. And the next day was Kartika Shukla Ekadashi, where Govindpada gave Shankaracharya ji this initiation into sannyasa. And from that time onwards, he started living with the Guru. And he was absorbing the Vedic scriptures and Upanishads and Vedas and all the thought processes. And of course, the four Mahavakyas, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, Prajnanam Brahma, and Ayam Atma Brahma. So the studies was going on very severely and disciplined manner, and like all the yogic pathways were followed, methodologies were followed, and the meditation on the Atman. So the seasons were passing by, and now the rainy season had come, and so much of water, rainfall was there, heavy rainfall, and the water of the Narmada river was overflowing, flooded. The area was in danger, and the people were crying for help. But at that time, the Govindpada was in the Samadhi, the higher states of Samadhi. So this Shankaracharya didn't want to lead the situation because his Guru was there present in the ashram, and he was the head of the ashram, plus he was elderly. But when he saw that the waters were rising above, so he started to act upon. He placed the pot in front of the cave and uttered the mantra. So all the water started flowing inside the pot. And soon the water's level decreased and the situation was in control. When his guru came to know about this incident after he came out of his samadhi, he was very happy, and he knew that Shankaracharya ji had all the qualities of becoming the Jagat Guru, world leader. So he blessed him and said him, "Oh my dear, now you proceed towards Varanasi, the Lord Shiva's place, and the Divine Mother will shower the blessings on you." So the departure, the parting was very, very painful. But then Shankaracharya ji walked towards Kashi, and then to worship the Lord Vishwanatha and Annapurna Devi. So a new matrix of the time began for ancient India, the way to Sanatan Dharma, and the Vedic stream was saved from all time to come. Hari Om.
We have our next speaker, Sugandha. She's talking in Hindi. Topic is Guru Ki Khoj.
हरिओम, सभी को नमस्कार। भगवान का पूरा जीवन ही वैसे प्रेरित करने वाला है, लेकिन जिसने मुझे सर्वप्रथम प्रभावित किया वो यही घटना है जिस पे अभी प्रज्ञा जी बोल के गई, गुरु की खोज। जैसे कि प्रज्ञा जी ने बहुत सुंदरता से उसका वर्णन किया, उसी में मैं बस कुछ बिंदुओं को ही जोड़ती हूँ गद्य और पद्य के माध्यम से। तो यात्रा प्रारंभ होती है पूर्णा के तट से। तज पूर्णा के तट को पहुंचे नन्हे पग नर्मदा जिस दिन, उदय हुआ परम ज्ञान का एक सूर्य सनातन उस दिन। कल्पना कीजिए वो 8 वर्ष के थे, यद्यपि साधारण बालक नहीं, लेकिन थे तो बालक ही। और अपने मन में उन्होंने संन्यास का निर्णय उस समय लिया और गुरु की खोज में उत्तर की तरफ बढ़ चले। उनकी मनोस्थिति किस तरह की रही होगी वो कुछ पंक्तियों के माध्यम से व्यक्त करूंगी कि लिए विरक्त मन जान के जग भ्रम, श्रद्धा भासित पथ चले दृढ़ कदम। लिए एक ही आशा गुरु मिलेंगे कहीं, करते चले पार पर्वत वन नदी। न शोक पीड़ा रोग की कोई चिंता कहीं, जलती लौ जिज्ञासा दावा नल सी बढ़ी। इसी विषय पे गुरुदेव का एक बहुत ही सुंदर उदाहरण है, उसे मैं बताना चाहूंगी कि जैसे पुष्प का धर्म है खिलना और वातावरण को सुगंधित करना, और ये चिंता ना करना कि भंवरे आएंगे कब आएंगे, वैसे ही एक साधक हम सबका ही धर्म है कि अपने अंदर समाधि षट्क संपत्ति जो हम पढ़ते आ रहे हैं इतने 6 महीनों में, उसको विकसित करें और अपना बिना किसी कामना के अपने कर्म को करते चले। पर ऐसा भी नहीं है कि अपने कर्तव्य पालन की हम कोई सीमा बना लें कि इतने वक्त तक हम ये काम करेंगे और अगले दिन ऐसा होगा एक चमत्कार कि हम अपने घर के कपाट खोलेंगे और चिन्ह मुद्रा में एक गुरु हमें सामने मिलेंगे। ऐसा भी नहीं है, इतना अभिलाषाएं भी नहीं रखनी है। तो मूल बात यह है कि जब हम तैयार होंगे तो किसी न किसी रूप में हमें गुरु उसी तरह मिलेंगे जैसे कि भगवान शंकराचार्य को मिले थे। जो आई घड़ी शुभ त्यों मिले गुरु शिष्य, मेल पुण्यात्माओं का हर्षित पूर्ण विश्व। हुआ नर्मदा तट अनोखा प्रश्नोत्तर, दिया गुरु प्रश्न का अहम तज उत्तर। ये तन मन भूत निर्मित से इतर, हर बंधन मुक्त अचल नहीं जड़। रूप चिदानंद का मैं शिव हूँ, अद्वैत शुद्ध एक मैं शिव हूँ। दृढ़ उद्घोष गूंजित प्रसन्न दिशा सारी, परम गुरु ने पाया दिग्विजय अधिकारी। मेरे मत से ये ही वो क्षण है जब दिग्विजय की नींव पड़ी, क्योंकि ज्ञान अर्जन करना और उसको समाहित करने में अंतर है, और ये अंतर गुरु चरणों में ही जाके मिटता है। साथ उनकी उपलब्धियां असंख्य हैं जिन्हें कम समय में बता पाना तो कठिन है, लेकिन कुछ बिंदुओं को रखना चाहूंगी कि जो आज सनातन दिखे नींव उसकी गुरु चरणों में ही पहुंचकर पड़ी थी। पंचायतन पूजा और सूत्र दशनामी में पिरो थे मिटाए उसने भेद सभी। संगठित मठों में धर्म किया उसने, विश्व पटल पर जगत गुरु उभरा। भाष्य बिना उसके ज्ञान वंचित होता, भ्रमित संकुचित धर्म राष्ट्र बिखरा। आज की परिस्थितियों को ध्यान में रख के हम बहुत कुछ सीख सकते हैं उनके जीवन से। जैसे अभिव्यक्ति की आजादी वाले मंडन मिश्र और भगवान के शास्त्रार्थ से सत्य के आगे समर्पण बिना लज्जा कैसे करना है ये सीख सकते हैं। मनीषा पंचकम से समानता का अधिकार सीख सकते हैं, पंचायतन पूजा से में विविधता में एकता देख सकते हैं, और हम जैसे साधक अपने जिज्ञासा का दीपक कैसे जलाए रखना है वो सीख सकते हैं। उस 8 वर्ष के बालक की गुरु खोज हमको सिख लाती, जिज्ञासा दीप डालो कैसे श्रद्धा की बाती, गुरु उपदेश तेल श्रवणादि चिंगारी, ज्ञान ज्योति से धरा ये प्रकाशित सारी। अंत में इतना ही कहूंगी कि जिस क्षण हम उत्कृष्ट मानव बनने का निश्चय कर लेते हैं बिना किसी कामना के, उसी क्षण हम गुरु कृपा के योग्य बन जाते हैं। और वास्तव में इसीलिए गुरु कृपा स्वयं की गुरु खोज स्वयं की खोज बन जाती है। और जैसे कि शास्त्रों में है, उत्तिष्ठ भारत कर्म कर फल की चिंता ना कर, और गुरु सगुण निर्गुण रूप किसी ना किसी रूप में मार्गदर्शन करने के लिए आ ही जाएंगे। तो आप सभी को आगे की यात्रा की शुभकामनाएं देते हुए कुछ अंतिम पंक्तियां प्रस्तुत करूंगी कि नदियों के सागर तर तक जाने जैसी ही ये गुरु खोज है, कस्तूरी मृग जैसी स्वमद में व्याकुल ये गुरु खोज है, सीप छाने सागर भूल के मोती वैसी ये गुरु खोज है, न अर्थ काम ज्ञान किंतु स्वयं की खोज ही गुरु खोज है, इस जीवन की जो परम खोज है वो ही ये गुरु खोज है। धन्यवाद।
Dhanyavad Sugandha. Now we have A. Krishna Kumar ji speaking in English. His topic is Shri Adi Sankaracharya, the CEO.
शारदा शारदां भोज वदना वदनां भुजे सर्वदा सर्वदा अस्माकं सन्निधिं क्रियात्। Shankaracharya's birthplace, Shankaram building, Bhavanam, Sankara Vijayotava Divasa. What else I can ask for? What else we can ask for? It's a great blessings. Respected Vedji, learned students, it's an honor to be here to present my views on Shankaracharya as the CEO. I'm just trying to imagine 2000 years back. We are talking about 2000 years back. The movies I have been seeing in college days, my children don't see. It's old age. 100 years back movies, we can't sit. Language is different, dialogues are different, stories are different. We are talking about 2000 years. One side Buddhism was there, one side Vaishnavism, one side Shaivism, one side various castes, various religion views, various philosophies were coming up. I was just imagining if Shankaracharya was not there, what would have happened? How we would have been? Probably we would have been 100 countries, 200 countries, we don't know. Probably we would all be speaking some other language like English, like I'm speaking, could be our country's language, could be English. We would have probably lost all our scriptures, all our Vedas, all our texts. Probably we would have lost Sanskritam. So that's when I was wondering, what did Sankaracharya do? We all know he wrote 3 groups of texts: Bhashyas, Prasthanatrayi, on Prasthanatrayi, Upanishad, Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutra, and also he wrote Bhashyas, for various stotras also. For example, Vishnu Sahasranam, he wrote many Bhashyas he wrote. And also he wrote, a lot of manuals, Prakana Granthas, we all know about it. He also wrote a lot of stotras. We have all been studying, a lot of scholars have been studying for 2000 years, maybe another 2000 years and more people will be studying. That's for sure. But how India got integrated? Shankaracharya is the only person who played a major role. Apart from he going around arguing with various philosophical views and establishing Advaita philosophy. What he did was a great, unimaginable establishment, the 4 mutts. He wrote the book, he wrote the rule book and established 4 mutts. He requested or he asked his 4 disciples to head those 4 centers or 4 mutts. He gave certain principles for 4 mutts. For example, each one followed one particular Veda. Each one followed one particular sampradaya. Each one had one particular devata, one particular shakti, one particular pattanama, one particular surname. Now, I was just wondering if that was not there. Probably the Advaita or Hindu philosophy would not have reached so many people. The current Shankaracharya of Sringeri Mata is the 36th, if I remember. Now, 36th pontiff or 36 Sankaracharya means, assuming 60 years, 70 years, each Shankaracharya took the position. It's around 2000 years. Continuously, they've been holding the fort and spreading the knowledge throughout India. Now, thank you. I just wanted to refer, a company called IBM, all of us know. 100 years back, it was called Calculating, Recording, and Tabulating Company. That company name got changed to International Business Machine and now changed to IBM. So if you look at every company last 100 years, it has gone through a lot of changes. Whereas these 4 mutts, if you study, right, whatever defined in the manual has been completely maintained. The paddhati, the procedure, the concepts, the basic philosophy of Advaita Vedanta and the knowledge-based, society integration, they have ensured that it is maintained. So in my opinion, which I wanted to share with all of you, is Shankaracharya is the CEO the country has seen or the world has seen. All others are following. So my recommendation is, if any company wants to establish a good organization, follow Sankaracharya. That's it. So the message to all of us is Shankaracharya is the CEO for not only for our country, for the entire globe. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Krishna Kumarji. Now we have Arun Goyalji speaking in English on the Ek Jiva Vada.
Thank you. Fine, thank you. Hari Om. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Pada Shankaram Lok Shankaram. Namami Bhagavad Pada Shankaram Lok Shankaram. My obeisance and salutations to the most revered, to one whom we refer as Bhashyaka, to one who was born here several centuries ago and to whose tireless efforts we have the parampara to which we all belong. In the words of Pujya Gurudev, Adi Shankar was an exquisite thinker, a brilliant intellect, a personality scintillating with the vision of truth, a heart throbbing with industrious faith, and an ardent desire to serve humanity. Sweetly emotional and relentlessly logical, in whom the Upanishads discovered the fittest spiritual general. I invoke the grace of Pujya Bhashyakar, Pujya Gurudev, and all in the Guru Shishya Parampara that we all represent. It is not I who stands before you. It is not you who sit there and listen. It is him representing the Parampara here and everywhere. Welcome to Ek Jivad, a talk delivered by you, for you, and of you. Those gathered here who have understood the words spoken
have understood. Nothing more needs to be said, but I have been allotted 5 minutes on a transactional level that I shall use for the benefit of all of us. The insight into Ek Jeevvad was made available by the learned family that I've just mentioned, the family of Revered Bhashakar, Puja Gurudev, of which this gathering is a part. I begin by the question, what is space and what is time? Or is it just space-time? Brahman is all-pervading, all-knowing, all-powerful. So where is this space-time construct? Is it outside Brahman, which would be a fallacy and an all-pervasive nature of Brahman? Then it must be inside Brahman. Even then, it would be a fallacy, as Brahman cannot be composed of parts, where one part is a space-time construct. This construct is neither inside nor outside Brahman, then it must be Brahman itself. Brahman cannot be space-time construct, as that construct by definition has finiteness about it, and Brahman is infinite. Then why this construct at all? To understand this strange phenomena, we have to turn our attention to the land of dreams. I draw from the writings of Swami Krishnanandaji of Divine Life Society. Thus, he is a part of us and he speaks, hears, and blesses us at this very moment. Incidentally, today is his 100th birth anniversary as well. I quote Swamiji, even if it's difficult, please try and understand. There is a deceptive space and time in the dream world by which, through which, on account of which, the consciousness that dreams feels that there are things outside in the space-time of dream. It can see a whole world, but that whole world that is seen can only be there if there is a space-time. If there is no space-time, there cannot be a world, unquote. I'm sorry, it's a little tough, but then 5 minutes means only 1 minute left. Okay, so if our dream world is made possible by this space-time construct, then what about the waking world? Is that also not a mere space-time construct? All that we think, feel, do is in that construct. The moment this session started has already passed into a dream. The next moment, that too has already passed into a dream as I speak. Everything has been done by me, Lord Krishna told Arjun in Bhagavad Gita. I have already done what you are trying to do now. Lord Krishna said, I have already destroyed these people. Think, what is Lord trying to tell Arjun? Existence does not require space and time. It is all pervading, it is without parts, it is all knowing, it is all powerful. The space-time construct is for us. All those jivas who stand apart in our own small cocoon of space and time. It is for us to realize and end this dream of the waking state, as well as and identify ourselves with the one and only existence consciousness that illumines all of us, Jeeves, yet remains the only one in all, and that is Ek Jeevvad. May we continue being part of that great oneness, that Satchit Anand. Hari Om.
Thank you, Arunji. Now I would like to call Mahudas ji, who's talking in English on the topic Sri Shankaracharya, Contribution in Revival of Bhakti.
Hari Om. The first question that will come is, why revival? Why make it complicated? Why don't you just say his contributions to bhakti? Now, revival is an important word in 8th century India. Let's have a brief look at what what was the legacy that Shankaracharya actually was handed down when he started his work? If I'm asked to describe India at that time using only one word, I will use the word fragmentation and all the evils that go with it. India was fragmented politically. There was not one emperor, pan-India, who was ruling the country. The Mauryas were gone, the Guptas were gone, Harshavardhan was gone. All the warlords were busy in strife with each other. Socially, the country was fragmented. Sects, subsects, classes, subclasses, no end. Religion was in a mess. There were the atheists, there were the theists, there were within the Vedic fold, outside of the Vedic fold, fragmentation. And it wasn't just the Buddhists that were doing the harms. It was the Purva Mimamsiks who were also doing the harm. What to speak of the Kapaliks? What were they doing? So, all in all, what India was losing at that time was that centuries-old custom, the tradition of the Vedic dharma, the Sanatana dharma, that has this concept of Ishvara, Atman, worship, devotion, the personal God concept. What happened? How did we lose it? That was the question. And that was what Shankara's legacy. That's the India he was handed down. And this young monk, CEO indeed, had these wonderful strategies to integrate, to bring a change from this Shunyavada, this life-draining negative energy that was spreading throughout India, that Shunyam, Shunyam, Sarvam Shunyam, Dukkham, Dukkham, Sarvam Dukkham. What is it? That is not the Sanatana Dharma. So what did he do? There were the theists. There were people who were worshipping. Now, that wasn't very good news either. What was the problem? The problem was that I am a Vaishnava, and that is it. If you are a Shaiva, you are lower than me because Shiv is lower than Vishnu. So you may as well be an atheist. I don't care. So religion was not that peaceful spiritual journey. It was an aggressive tool to establish superiority over others. So that was the degeneration of Sanatana Dharma that he was handed down to. So the brilliant strategy that he had applied was first the Panchayatana Puja. Bring all of them together. He made it compulsory for all households to do it. Bring all the deities together, not just to stop the strife, but also to bring people up to a higher level of spirituality that see that oneness in various forms. Not just that, he revived all the temples down from Rameshwaram to Badri, from Dwarka to Kamakhya, and everything in between. Wherever he went in his parikramas, he used to go to all the temples to give these scintillating talks, bring people back to the temple, the personal worship, social worship. He had, contrary to popular belief, he had started the worship of Divine Mother in all his matters. He had wrote all these Prakarana Granthas because it's not just people who are not the elite Vedanta darshan who will be interested, but people who would want to start in that marga, to start with Prakarana Granthas. He had wrote all these beautiful melodious stutis, stotras, rich in lyrics, so much of bhakti, and all this to bring together. So in the end, I just want to say that he was not just a philosopher, he was not just the elite Vedantin, but a true Vedantin in his heart, where his compassion was for everybody. so inclusive that there is no one outside of it. It's true Vedanta, when no matter where you are in your spiritual journey, you are inside, you are not outside. Wherever you are, in the end of your journey, you will reach there. Just be in the path. Thank you. Hari Om.
I would now call Emilia as our next speaker. She's speaking in Slovenian on Atmashtakam.
I think it's okay. Maybe slightly higher. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham je bil odgovor Adi Sankaracharya na večno vprašanje iskalcev resnice, kdo sem jaz. Pri rosnih 8 letih je z gorečo željo po osvoboditvi zapustil dom in odšel iskat svojega učitelja. Zgodba pravi, da ko ga je ta vprašal, kdo si, je Adi Sankaracharya odgovoril v pesnitvi, ki se imenuje Atmashatkam oziroma Nirvana Shatkam. Pomeni 6 verzov, ki govorijo o naši pravi naravi. Čeprav je danes pravimo pesnitev, je dejansko bila izjava o njegovi lastni izkušnji absolutne blaženosti kot samouresničene osebe. Zato to ni besedilo, o katerem bi lahko veliko razpravljali intelektualno, ampak je podlaga za kontemplacijo in meditacijo, ki nas mora pripeljati do enakega spoznanja sebe, naše prave narave. Njegovih besed ne moremo zgolj razumeti z intelektom, kajti ne samo, da nas to ne bo pripeljalo do spoznanja samega sebe, temveč je lahko tudi zmotno in škodljivo za našo duhovno pot. In le iskreni iskalec resnice, ki ima prečiščen ki ima sposobnost razločevanja, ki ima nenavezanost na zunanji svet in ima zmožnost poglobljene kontemplacije, bo v tej pesnitvi lahko prepoznal nakazano subtilno resnico in jo tudi izkusil kot svoj lastni jaz. V pesnitvi Bhagavan na eni strani zanika vse, kar mislimo, da smo, vse, s čimer se istovetimo, in na drugi strani zelo prepričljivo in direktno sporoča, kdo smo, kaj je naš pravi jaz. Tako odpravi vse naše lažne predstave o tem, o našem sebstvu, ki nam dajo občutek omejenosti v tem svetu, in na drugi strani zelo ljubeče, vendar prepričljivo nas vodi za roko do končnega spoznanja sebe. Adi Sankara je učitelju odgovoril na vprašanje, kdo si, na naslednji način. Nisem to telo, ki je sestavljeno iz 5 elementov. Nisem čutila, ki zaznavajo zunanji svet, kot so nos, vid, okus. Nisem prana, ki je življenjska energija, ki omogoča vse funkcije v telesu. Nisem ki misli in ki občuti. Nisem niti intelekt, ki razmišlja in ki razume. Ne poznam slepila, ne poznam želje, ne poznam jeze, ne poznam ljubosumja. Nimam zaslug, ne greha. Nimam radosti, ne žalosti, ne užitka, ne bolečine. Zame ni ne svete reke, ne svetega obreda, ne svetih spisov, ni pravega ali napačnega delovanja. Nisem učitelj, nisem učenec, nisem prijatelj, nisem sorodnik. Nisem ujet v ta svet in nisem osvobojen. Nimam očeta, nimam matere, ni me strah smrti, ker nimam smrti in nimam niti rojstva. Kdo potem sem jaz? Šivoham, čista zavest. Sem bit, zavest in blaženost. Sačidananda, vselej čist, razsvetljen, popolnoma brezhiben, vselej blažen. Sem onstran vsega vidnega in nevidnega, čutnega, nečutnega. Sem brez imena, brez oblike, brez značilnosti in brez namer. Brez začetka in brez konca. Sem nespremenljiva, neuničljiva, večna bit. Sem podstat vsega stvarstva, sem tisti, ki se ustvari, ohranja in uniči. Sem resnični jaz, prav vsega in vsakogar. Končno sporočilo je, obstaja samo eno. Ekam eva dvitijam. Kaeto? Yes. Kdo sam jaz? Koham. Aham nirvikalpo nirakara rupo vibhurvyapya sarvatra sarvendriyanam sadame samatvam na mukti na bandha chidananda rupa shivoham shivoham.
Thank you, Amelia. We have Mahesh ji as our next speaker, speaking in English on sadhana.
No, this one. Hari Om. Nama Namaha Sarvebhyaha. Namami Bhagavad Pada Shankaram Loka Shankaram. Salutation to the Guru Parampara. So let's zoom in because we are seeing Bhagavan Shankaracharya's life in a wider lens. So let's zoom in. So this the Bhagavan Shankar's Digvijaya is for whom? For us, sadhak, right? So we are here the part of Vedanta Sadhaka Course. So the whole effort, Shakshat Parameshwara reincarnate for sadhak, for the individuals. See, we all, so the question comes, who is sadhak? So an individual's journey from Koham to Shivoham. So we are starting our journey from Koham, right? And we end at Shivoham. So Bhagwan came and revived the Sanatan Dharma. And he composed Prakran Gantha, rewrite the Bhashyas. For whom? For us sadhak. So sadhana. So we find different sadhanas at different levels. See, you have to understand the adhikaritva. Like in our classes, we are discussing different kinds of adhikaris are there. So Bhagwan has taken care of all the adhikaris, whether you are Nimna, Madhya or Uch adhikaris. So three problems all the sadhak face. But Maheshji, don't you think we have many problems? Not only the three problems, but yes, every sadhak face three problems. And first is Chittamala, means whatever I do my sadhana, I can't sit, I can't focus, because there are a lot of impurities in our chitta, not only this janma, janmantar impurities. Also, Bhagwan has given us the solution, karma yoga, right? Iswar Arpan Buddhi. And not any karma, but the karma validated, authorized by the Veda, right? Veda, Buddhi, Karma. No, but Sadhuji, I just want to do all those things and then this is karma. This is fine. You will get the gain, result and punya. So let's start with karma. So when I'm using the word sadhaka, see yourself as a sadhak, not the someone who's sitting next to you, or just imagine someone other is sadhaka. So whatever the Bhagwan or our great acharyas is telling for our own self, for you, the individual sadhak. Second problem, okay, impurity is little bit decreased now. Chitta vikshepa. My mind is so scattered, yes, distracted here and there. So the Bhagwan has given us a different upasanas, bhaktis, right? Okay, now the mind is pure. Let's start with Sagun Bhakti, then move on to the Nirguna Bhakti. But the third problems that we have to deal in this life, very much life. Please don't wait. Of course, we all have the option not to do. But the third biggest problem we all have is ajnana. At the individual level. Ajnana, only the one solution is jnana. So Bhagwan has given us the solution in the form of Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana. So the three problems and the three solutions. So the I would say more about Shravana. Tatparya Avdaranams. Okay, so for Shravan on the center message of Bhagwan's teaching, Prakan Grantha or the Prasthantai. Manana, Tadartha Mananata, contemplate, yes. Contemplate, question, doubts comes again and again, and try to abide Nididhyasana. So I see Bhagwan's teaching as very individual, very personal, because I don't believe that heaven on earth, but I do believe in heaven in our own self. Okay, so the whole journey starts from our own self, and I see the Bhagwan Sakshat is there, and still we are the part of our great tradition. So this is our own sadhaka's responsibilities to carry on this tradition by making ourselves free first. So that's it. I would say thank you. Namo Namaha.
Thank you, Maheshji. We have our next speaker as Bhupendra Singh Negi, speaking in English. His topic is an epitome of Jnana and Bhakti.
Hari Om. Vande Guru Parampara. Salutations to the one because of which we are all gathered here. So when I decided to speak on the topic today, the first thing that I had to think about was what should I speak upon and what should be the title. Then, and we all know the topic of discussion is Jagat Guru Adi Sankaracharya ji. But what should be the matter? Because what can be the matter for something as boundless as Bhagwan Shankara himself? So this sent me to a reflective mode. And as all Vedanta Sadhaka, we know how important reflection is. One may forget eating, but not reflecting. So please keep that in mind. But there are a few Siddha Purushas who can even reflect while eating, or they can reflect on the food for the entire day. So that's a different thing altogether. Now, this brought into my attention two prominent aspects of his life, which is Bhakti and Jnana. So goes the title, which is Adi Shankara, an epitome of Jnana and Bhakti. Now, we as a sadhaka also have to remember that again, Jnana and Bhakti are just names and forms, are the pointers. As Pujya Gurudev used to say, that we have to shift our attention from the pointer to the pointed. That is Bhagwan Shankara, and that's why the title starts from the word itself. Now, I have taken two prominent instances from his life, one from his childhood and another when he was already a sought after guru, which was needed by the Vedic culture at that time, during that century. And he was already have circumvented all the Gnostic religions by that time. Now, how I came across that was I was standing in Illam after Gayatri Havan was finished yesterday, and Subramanyam ji and Jayanti ji, I was looking at the picture and the painting, and they came up to me and explained me about how Kanakadhara Stotra came into the existence. And so then I thought that I can include that as a bhakti aspect. And growing up in Kaladi, and Shankaracharya ji got the learning in Sanskrit, learned scriptures, and studied itihasas and Puranas. Adding to this, Aryamba made sure that the temple worship was a regular occasion for him. And this probably drew the mind of the boy towards Bhakti Yoga at that time, at such an early age. So then came the time in the life of the student that he had to go out and get the bhiksha. So he went out and went and stood in front of a house with his fellow brahmacharis. And then when the lady came out, and she had nothing but a dry gooseberry. So looking at this, he was dismayed. But as anyone could have been despaired by looking at the situation, but he being Bhagwan himself, and also was taught well by the Aryamba, she made sure that he studies well and remembers the Saraswati Devi, Probably that's why Swamiji asked us to remember Veda Suttam, so that we can also remember things. And that derived a concept wherein Lakshmi ji was always there to give him what he wanted, what he wished for. And then came the Kanakadhara Stotram. That Kanakadhara Stotram flowed like that unstoppable river, and flowing naturally to meet the ocean and merge with it. And we could picture those 20 verses created by the Bhagwan himself, ever graceful image of Mahalakshmi in front of us. And then he also called upon the people to pray for that divine mother. And that's how you can imagine. And as I could understand from my own understanding, that this unadulterated bhakti bhava, that kept him steady in the path of jnana. And as we all know, the highest bhakti is the jnana itself. Now fast forward to the second incident about Bhagwan Shankara at the apex of his spiritual glory, and he came to know that there is a throne of ammunition in Kashmir, the southern portal of which is still closed. Nobody from the southern has claimed. So taking it as a great sign, he went, and also he got a blessing from his own Param Guru just a day earlier. So he took that as a sign and went ahead. Now temple of Sharda has consisted of 4 gates, northwest, east, south. Northwest is were already claimed, but no one from the south had done that. Now at the southern gate, he had a bevy of intellectual luminaries waiting for him to give a test, and he had to cross a step of stairs. At every step there was an intellectual asking him for what he can give, and he answered everyone, and then everyone praised him, accepted him, and invited him to occupy the Sarvajna Pita. Now what I could understand from these situations, these 2 incidents in his life, that these 2 incidents in his life show how Shraddha all throughout the early age has kept his mumukshutta alive, and that he was able to achieve that state of Sthitrabhagna and come out as that unique, uncompromising, intellectual and ardent devotee. Hari Om Tat Sat.
Thank you, Bhupendra. Our next speaker is Divakarji, talking in Hindi, a bhajan depicting the life sketch of Sri Sankaracharya ji.
हरि ओम। ओम श्री चिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः। सुंदर केरळ सुंदर एर्णाकुलम सुंदर केरळ सुंदर एर्णाकुलम आद्य गुरु शंकर परम गुरु तपोवन आद्य गुरु शंकर परम गुरु तपोवन और गुरुदेव सब ही केरल से सुंदर केरल सुंदर एर्णाकुलम सुंदर केरल सुंदर एर्णाकुलम आर्यम्बा माता पिता शिव गुरु आर्यम्बा माता पिता शिव गुरु करते हैं याचना शिव से संतान की सुंदर केरल सुंदर एर्णाकुलम वैशाख शुक्ल पंचमी वैशाख शुक्ल पंचमी 8वीं सदी की निराकार ने आकार लिया वेलिया नाड़ में सुंदर केरल सुंदर एर्णाकुलम सुंदर केरल सुंदर एर्णाकुलम चले ओंकारेश्वर मिले गुरु गोविंद चले ओंकारेश्वर मिले गुरु गोविंद देखते ही नाना रखा शंकर सुंदर केरल सुंदर एर्णाकुलम विष्णु सहस्रनाम और ब्रह्म सूत्र विष्णु सहस्रनाम और ब्रह्म सूत्र भाष्य लिखा शंकर ने गुरु के आदेश से सुंदर केरल सुंदर एर्णाकुलम नमामि शंकर नमामि शंकराचार्य नमामि शंकर नमामि शंकराचार्य। श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय। आद्य गुरु शंकराचार्य भगवान की जय।
Thank you, Divagarji. We now have Julia speaking in Russian on the instructions on Manana and Nididhyasana from Sadhana Panchakam.
Okay. Hariom. Vakyartascha vichariyatam srutisiraf pakshak samasiyatam. I will speak in Russian. В третьем стихе в Садхана Панчакам мы видим инструкции к двум важным садханам. Это манана и это нидидьясана. И обычно мы переводим манана как размышление, а нидидьясана мы переводим как созерцание или как медитация. Но как бы мы ни переводили эти два слова, нужно в первую очередь понимать, что они значат, что это такое. В нидидьясане человек фокусируется на знании. В шравана человек получает информацию, в манана человек получает понимание, получает ясность, а в нидидьясана это уже больше не информация, это уже становится убеждением. Но будь это информация или знание, это не обязательно несет нам какую-то трансформацию. Трансформация случается, когда мы поглощаем знания. Трансформация случается не просто, когда мы имеем убеждения, а когда мы живем этим убеждением. А жить убеждением мы начинаем, когда это становится частью нашего жизненного опыта. Когда человек не просто знает, что он брахман, когда он живет как брахман. Но какая проблема у нас возникает на пути к этому опыту? Знание есть, но предыдущие привычки, они сильнее этого знания. То есть випарита бхавана начинает управлять нашей жизнью. И почему випарита бхавана имеет столько силы? Потому что это привычка, а привычку нам очень сложно сломать. Мы все имеем привычку быть кхартритва, быть бхактритва, быть студентом, быть матерью, быть ребенком, маленьким, большим и так далее. Но для того, чтобы знание проникло в жизнь и изменило наше видение жизни, нам нужно нечто большее, чем просто ясность, чем просто убежденность. И это как раз создается нидидьясаной. Нидидьясана – это процесс превращения убеждения в опыт, в жизненный опыт. От интеллектуального понимания в жизненный опыт. И это цель медитации. Как создать этот жизненный опыт? Нужно прежде всего создать привычку. Человек создает привычку через постоянное повторение чего-либо. И в медитации мы не получаем знания, мы получаем привычку. Это достижение трансформации, а не получение какой-то новой информации. Что-то новое для нас приходит в шравана, достижение идеала происходит в манана, и актуализация достигается уже через дхьяна, через нидидьясану. В Махавакье, когда мы произносим Махавакью, в ней есть знание, но простое повторение Махавакьи, оно не даст нам ничего получить. Ахам Брахмасми, я есть Брахман. И сегодня, когда мы говорим «я», мы имеем в виду индивидуальность. Но через веданту мы понимаем, что «я» — это чистое сознание, это не индивидуальность. И в нидидьясане мы не берем эго и не говорим, что это эго есть Брахман. Когда я говорю «я Брахман», этого эго там уже нету. И мы отрицаем эго, ощущаем только сознание, как Брахман. И нету разделения, это становится одним. И это называется Брахмавидья, это называется Атмавидья, так как Брахман и Атман, они не разделены.
Spasiba, Yulia. Okay. Okay. Our next speaker is Srikanji, who's talking on Sri Shankaracharya's compassion. Sorry, in English.
Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The good part of coming in the end is I can refer to everyone's talk. Well, most of the content I have probably is already spoken of. So I'll keep it short, I hope. So Bhagwan Shankaracharya's compassion is seen through his various works. And you have heard from other speakers also what he has done. And I'm pretty sure that's not doing justice to what he has actually done, but it's just a glimpse of what he has done. So I'll be listing out a few things, but I will, as I said, for lack of time, I will not be completing the whole gamut that he has done. I'll just speak a few important things that I felt was nice to share with you guys. For Uttama Sadhakas who are reflective in nature and endow with Sadhana Chatushtaya, following Nivritti Dharma, having renounced all the worldly duties and attachments, responsibilities, and so on, he wrote Bhashyas and Upanishads so that they can imbibe the teachings. And for sadhakas who are like most of us, maybe he wrote Bhashya on Bhagavad Gita, which can be followed by, of course, those who are following the path of Nivritti Dharma, but also those who are following the path of Pravritti Dharma, that is the Grihastha Ashrama, who are active in this world doing their duties and responsibilities. And to help the transition of a sadhaka from Pravritti Dharma to Nivritti Dharma, he has written Prakarana Granthas. He has also composed so many stotras so that those who are not able to focus on the Nirguna Nirakara aspect of Brahman can connect with the Saguna aspect of it and then move on. In the stotras also, as others have said, there's a blend of both bhakti and jnana in it. And again, for those who are not convinced by the validity of Advaita Dharma, Advaita Vedanta, he wrote Bhashya on Brahma Sutras, and also he has toured various parts of Bharatvarsha to establish Advaita Vedanta by defeating the opponents from other schools of thought. And then he organized the Sannyas Ashram to Dashanami tradition to bring some coherency in the spread of Vedanta. And I think the other speakers also have spoken about the puja vidhi that he has prescribed for worshipping various deities, with the background of the knowledge of Advaita Vedanta that all these deities are representatives of that same reality, so that there's no conflicts between the followers of different deities. So these are some of the important topics that I felt where Bhagwan's activities showed his compassion for the sadhakas, serious spiritual seekers, and also, of course, general population following the dharma, how to reach that pinnacle of the spiritual sadhana and benefit from the teachings of Upanishads and his works like Bhashyas and Stotras. But his compassion was not confined only from the spiritual angle or only for the sadhakas from that perspective, but it was boundless. It was for everyone. And some examples we have heard already from earlier speakers. Bhupendra has said about the Kanakadhara Stotram, where he has pleaded with Sri Mahalakshmi Devi to bestow wealth upon that poor lady who was lamenting that she couldn't give a proper bhiksha to the brahmachari who was there. And there's another incident about the Kapali who came to him requesting to sacrifice Bhagwan's head so that he can go to Shivaloka with his own physical body. Bhagwan consented to it, even though it sounded like a superstitious wish. But this plan was foiled by his disciple Padmapada later. So anyway, these are some of the events that I have listed just to show what's the scope of the compassion of Bhagavan for various kinds of devotees, and maybe not those who are very spiritually inclined, but in general for the whole population. So before, I just want to conclude the talk with the idea of what we learn from this Bhagavan's compassion, and also how do we implement that lesson that we learned from that, from the Bhagavan's compassion towards others. What is compassion? Currently, what our awareness is that, at least mine, is that I am this separate individual and there is a world. And compassion, what we mean by that is usually we have some empathy towards another being that creates a sense of oneness for that moment, at least it's a temporary one. Whereas this is in contrast with what a Jnani actually sees. A Jnani's compassion, if you can call that word as compassion, is that he sees the self in all with no difference between himself and others. So his works are for Loka Sangra, which is for the benefit of the world. But internally, his natural state of awareness is oneness with all. And it is all the time, not like us where we generate that feeling of oneness when the compassion arises for certain situations and it's only for a certain time. So how do we comprehend this oneness by a Jnani, which I think many of us have heard already. The illustration is that when I am unable to lift an object with my left hand, my right hand automatically goes to work with the left hand. There's no sense of any thought or a feeling that, oh, I have to help the left hand. It is spontaneous, it's natural, it's effortless. So that kind of awareness, if we have with the whole world and all the objects that we see, everything, everybody, every being, that's what you can probably at least mentally or intuitively imagine that a Jnani is having with the whole world that he's dealing. Because there is oneness between the two hands or the parts of the body, we see the oneness, and there is no sense of compassion or gratitude in return. So to summarize, our compassion that evokes oneness needs a cause, and we see, and it is limited to only a certain people and situations, and it is temporary. But a Jnani's compassion is natural, effortless, and causeless also. It is towards everything, and it is at all the time. So that's why the word used for Jnani's compassion can be called as grace. It may not be a compassion from our sense of point of view. And the final thing is, how do we reach this state of Jnani? What is said is Siddhasya Lakshanani is Sadhakasya Sadhanani. We need to cultivate that feeling of oneness with others. And one of the methods prescribed is Karma Yoga. That is, we offer service to others, seeing the Bhagavan in them, who is the indweller and who is connecting all of us. The more we begin to feel that connectedness with others, the less bondage we'll have, or less identification we'll have with our own individuality of body and mind. And also it helps us to take us beyond even the divisions that we impose on ourselves, like the age, gender, caste, religion, region, country, and all that. The mind will become purer and calmer that way, and it will be able to imbibe the teachings and practices given in Shastras, helping us to reach the goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Srikanji. We now have Rashmiji reciting a poem in English on Sri Adi Guru Shankaracharya.
Hari Om. It's okay. Hari Om. So before coming for this Vedanta Sadhaka course, I thought I knew something at least about Adi Sankaracharya. How much I didn't know, I came to know only after coming here. The reverence quotient had just gone up, and up over the last 6 months. So when we got to know that there is this program happening and one can speak something about Adi Sankaracharya ji, I took the liberty of penning a short poem about him to just encapsulate what all he achieved in that short span of 32 years. The first line of the poem, it starts with the line saying, because I could not stop for death, because I feel he actually did stop death. He in a way managed to do so much in 16 years that even death was flabbergasted and said, oh my God, you need another 16 years to do all that you plan to do. So here's my ode of reverence to Adi Sankaracharya. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. But that was not how my life was originally meant to be. Now, upon being granted a gracious extension of 16 years, in my quest to revive Vedic Dharma, I left no stone unturned. Of course, the initial 16 years of my life too, I had very well spent, mastering all the scriptures, then expounding what they meant. Ever aware that my superlative abilities were indeed a divine legacy, I knew that my role on this planet was ordained to fulfill a prophecy. In my crusade to revitalize Hinduism, Advaita Vedanta was my mantra, and I zealously traversed my motherland, refuting every other tantra. My path was arduous, and there were many twists, turns, and obstacles. But I was never deterred, for I had the courage of my convictions. Through Digvijaya tours, the revival of Vedic Dharma I definitely sparked. But I knew I must also safeguard Hinduism against future onslaughts. So, donning the role of the spiritual general, an army I set out to create, the Dashanami Sampradaya I conceived and seeded 4 mathas great. To lead and nurture these 4 mathas, my 4 able students I tasked, knowing that there was no better Guru Dakshina I could have asked. Thus I passed the baton, and I knew that my life had been well spent. And upon exhausting my span of 32 years, back into myself I went.
Thank you, Rashmi ji. Now, our last speaker is Vaijayanti ji. She is also reciting a poem in Marathi, a gratitude to Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji.
सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. This is a Marathi poem for Adi Sankaracharya ji. I have shared the translation of this for you to understand the meaning. धर्म सनातन जेव्हा केला भ्रमित जनांनी जखमी जर्जर. धर्म सनातन जेव्हा केला भ्रमित जनांनी जखमी जर्जर. कर्मकांड अन पशुहिंसेने ज्ञानपथाचा घडला विस्मर. कर्मकांड अन पशुहिंसेने ज्ञानपथाचा घडला विस्मर. नवधर्मांनी आक्रमिलेला आद्य धर्म तो व्याकुळ झाला. सदाशिवांनी त्रिशूल ठेवले हातामध्ये दंड पेलला. सदाशिवांनी त्रिशूल ठेवले हातामध्ये दंड पेलला. परशुरामांच्या भूमीवर सात्विक दंपती आचरती तप. परशुरामांच्या भूमीवर सात्विक दंपती आचरिती तप. किरात वपुषा नित्य पूजुनी दान व्रते अन नित्य नाम जप. किरात वपुषा नित्य पूजुनी दान व्रते अन नित्य नाम जप. कृपा लाभली दयाघनाची भाग्य पालटे कूस खरोखर. शिवगुरु आर्यांबेच्या सदनी आशिष होऊनी आले शंकर. शिवगुरु आर्यांबेच्या सदनी आशिष होऊन आले शंकर. बाल रवी सम सत्व तेजते करुणामय मन निश्चल बुद्धी. अष्टवर्षी हो वेद ज्ञानवित गुरु चरणरत शंकर आदि. धर्मोद्धारक करुणामूर्ती, धर्मोद्धारक करुणामूर्ती, गुरु आज्ञेने प्रेरित होऊनी, शंकर उजळीती ज्ञान मार्ग, शंकर उजळीती ज्ञान मार्ग तो द्वैत विशिष्टा जवळी घेऊन. विशाल भारत पायी चालता, विशाल भारत पायी चालता, जागोजागी जनसंबोधन, जागोजागी जनसंबोधन, चर्चा आणि शास्त्रवादही पाखंडाचे हो निर्दालन, पाखंडाचे हो निर्दालन. कित्येक रचिली स्तोत्रे सुंदर, कित्येक रचिली स्तोत्रे सुंदर, सगुणासंगे भक्ती चिंतन, सगुणासंगे भक्ती चिंतन. भगवंताचे रूप वर्णिता, अद्वैताचे अद्भुत प्रकटन, भगवंताचे रूप वर्णिता, अद्वैताचे अद्भुत प्रकटन. अधिष्ठान हो धर्मपीठांचे, अधिष्ठान हो धर्मपीठांचे, चार दिशांना ज्ञान सरोवर, नेमून देता शिस्त आचरण, कार्य चालू दे तिथे निरंतर, कार्य चालू दे तिथे निरंतर. प्रेमाने अन कृपादृष्टीने, प्रेमाने अन कृपादृष्टीने, मने सुखविती सद्गुरु शंकर, प्रेमाने अन कृपादृष्टीने, मने सुखविती सद्गुरु शंकर. भारत भूहृदयाशी धरते चरणधूली तो स्पर्श शुभंकर, भारत भूहृदयाशी धरते चरणधूली तो स्पर्श शुभंकर. जीवन ध्येयते धर्म उद्धरण, जीवन ध्येयते धर्म उद्धरण, जनास दावित मार्ग शुभाचा, संन्यासी तो करी दिग्विजय, गौरव करुनी ज्ञान भक्तीचा, गौरव करुनी ज्ञान भक्तीचा. कार्यतयांचे लिखित कराया, कार्यतयांचे लिखित कराया, कागद व्हावे गगनपटाने, कार्यतयांचे लिखित कराया, कागद व्हावे गगनपटाने. लेखणी असू दे सरस्वतीची, लेखणी असू दे सरस्वतीची, शब्द लिहावे गजाननाने, शब्द लिहावे गजाननाने. मन भरलेले भावभक्तीने, मन भरलेले भावभक्तीने, माला साधी शब्द फुलांची, मन भरलेले भावभक्तीने, माला साधी शब्द फुलांची. आज अर्पिते शंकरचरणी, आज अर्पिते शंकरचरणी, हृदयी भावना कृतज्ञतेची, हृदयी भावना कृतज्ञतेची. हरिओम.
Thank you, Vaijayanti ji. I would now like Niraja Amma to express her thoughts. She is a PhD scholar at CVB.
Hari Om. First thing, a huge round of applause for everybody who spoke today. And everybody who attended here. Thank you so much. It's very impressive to hear, this intellectual clarity that everybody has established. Everybody has shown here the emotional linkage that you have to Adi Nilayam, to Adi Guru. I have a request for all of you. Along with the intellectual clarity and the emotional link that you have, please try to imbibe the, I'm sorry, okay. Please try to imbibe the physical experiences of Adi Guru. Here was a person who more than 2,000 years ago traveled the length and breadth of this country. He went everywhere. How many of us have visited even some of those temples that he visited? Let's go there, not by plane, maybe not walking, but at least we could go by bus, we can go by car, and we can stop along the way, meet the people. Like he saw that there was a decline in Sanatana Dharma. If we were to travel the length and breadth of this country, we would also see the challenges of Hindus all along the country that we have today. The country is shrunk from what it used to be in his time. So if we go to Kashi, to Kanchi, where he has installed the Sri Chakra, sit there and meditate and pray. We go to Madurai, to Meenakshi temple where he has visited, to Vishalakshi in Varanasi. We go to the Jyotirlingams. If we go to the 4 mathas that he has established and take blessings from the Shankaracharyas, whom somebody had mentioned are his true descendants. If we go there, we go to the Char Dham that he has established along the country and the small Char Dham that we have in Uttarakhand, where you will see his connection to Kedarnath, of course, and also to Badrinath, because on the way to Badrinath, there is this cave near Joshimath where he meditated. And if you go there at a time when not many people are there, you can actually request the person to open the place and you can sit in that cave and meditate for yourself. So here's a secret for you. Please visit the place and take that opportunity. And if you have the chance to go perform Kailash Yatra, sit at the banks of the Manasarovar with Kailash in front, and then chant the chants that you have learned. Chant the Saundarya Lahari, where he calls himself the Dravida Shishu. So he never forgot who he was, where he came from, that small child who came from the southern part of the country, and he went and integrated the whole country, and he revived Hindu Dharma for us. So there are things that we admire about him. There are compositions that we read that he has written. But then what do we take from him that we are going to do? Because he was a man of great energy and commitment, courage. He was there fighting the old priesthood and established the traditional worship again in the temples. How many of us will do that? How many of us will go there and stand? Which temple are you going to revive? Where are you going to go and establish the roots of Dharma again? So that is the heritage that we take from the Sadguru. Not just that what he has written, because those are just the tools and instruments that he gave us. But what are we going to do with it? And so we are his true legacy, and we have to pass it to the next generation. So I request all of you to also include that physical experience that he had gone through in his short life of 32 years. Thank you. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Om Shri Bhagavad Padacharya Swamini Namaha. Very happy to listen to all different languages, different topics, different methods of communicating. Befitting to say that Pujya Shankaracharya's legacy is this, what we experienced just now. 1200 years back, somebody did something, and so many years later, we are still trying to understand what he did, and still are so much amazed by all the work that he has done. He did it in one language. We are trying to understand in so many different languages, trying to communicate in so many different languages. It is often said that what Shankaracharya did in 32 years will take 32 births to understand and realize. May this be the 32nd. That's the only prayer at his feet. Once again, we offer our prostrations to such a great master. Also to Puja Gurudev, who brought this master to our doorstep. Without Gurudev, we wouldn't have known Shankaracharya at all. It is Gurudev who brought these Prakarana Granthas, Bhashyas to us. Prostrations to him, prostrations to all the Gurus in the Parampara. Thank you once again to all of you for coming and sharing. Thank you to Chinmay Vishwavidyapeeth entire team. Thank you to Nirja Amma and Avinash, PhD scholars who helped in the arrangement of this program. Thank you one and all. We'll conclude with prayer. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Boli Shri Shankaracharya Bhagavan ki, Shri Sadgurunath Maharaj ki. Hari Om.